Hello, and welcome to the Ball Card Show, the sports podcast.
The Sports Collector.
I'm Jason Otero.
I'm Gary LeMaster.
And this is Season 5 and Episode 9. And we have got a lot of news to get to today. Very excited about the Value Box segment that we're going to be doing. More prospecting, more low-end liquid. We've got a lot going on. I had an extra cup of coffee this morning.
I can tell.
As you can tell. And I'm also not sick for the first time in
2 weeks.
Yeah. That helps.
That's a win. Yeah. You look happier.
Sure. Well, that's a lie.
No, but you look. I said you look
appearance,
happier.
Yes.
Appearance. I didn't say you were happier.
Right. I'm grumpy.
Yeah.
It's a gift. Not everyone can do this.
That's why we get along so well. We both tend to be grumpy.
I thought it was strange as a child when I watched the Dennis the Menace movie, and I'm most connected with Mr. Wilson. I was like, I get it.
I've been 83 since I was 12.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Anyhow.
All right, let's jump right in. PSA drops a major announcement. There was a lot of clickbaity titles out there about what this means. We've been hearing a lot of issues about gym rates, about turnaround time, but there's officially a change for them with their trading card games. Hey, I said it right that time.
TCG.
TCG cards with longer turnaround times and higher prices. So help us break down exactly how that will work.
Yeah, so two things here, two separate issues. The pricing change is only for TCG. The turnaround times are for everything, not just TCG. Right. So value and value bulk levels are now 65 business days, which equates to about 3.5 to 4 months. So we are not to the insanity of peak COVID 18-month turnaround times, but this is the longest turnaround time PSA has had for a while. Now, what's really strange about it to me is the amount of cards that they are grading has also dropped a pretty good chunk. So while they're adding time, they're grading less. One of two things is happening, in my opinion. It's the only thing that makes sense. Either they're drastically understaffed, which, to be fair, when you start out your guys who work in California at $17 an hour, you might be understaffed.
Yeah.
Or they are taking more time on cards to grade them, which would be in line with what we're seeing as far as lower gem rates, a lot harsher look at things. One of those two things or a combination of the two is likely at play here. But if you're sending stuff value or value bulk, understand you may not get it back. If you need football stuff for football season, you better send it now because that's when you're getting it back.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest contributing factors they're spelling out there is the TCG market has boomed incredibly. And so the number of submissions coming in from that space are much higher. Question I would have for you, and I always forget the name of it. What is the name of the most common, the largest grading company for the TCG market?
CGC.
CGC.
Yep.
What's their turnaround time looking like right now? Do you have any idea? I should have asked you this before.
I have no clue. I would be shocked if it's crazy long because they are like 4th on the list of overall submissions for sports cards. I know I'm
talking about on TCG.
They're second to PSA as far as volume goes there on TCG.
Yeah. So I would agree with everything you're saying about if you're somebody that's like, I want to grade this in time for this season. Last time that they said, hey, we're going to be at 3 to 4 month turnaround, that really meant longer than that.
Yeah.
So unless they have improved their systems, which we haven't seen any evidence of that,
right?
I would expect 3 to 4 months to be the minimum on that.
Now the way around that,
well, yeah, there is a way around it that would shorten that time frame, but it's still going to be longer than this hack would have been.
No, they still run their...
I disagree. Go ahead.
Well, they have advertised turn times for higher submission tiers.
Sure.
So this goes back to a philosophy thing. I don't grade anything that's not worth at least $150 raw. And if I'm going to grade it, I got to make money on it in a 9. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I'm not sending it. So one of the ways that you can increase your turn times, get your stuff back faster, is to change the things you're grading and pay up to get them graded.
Right.
Grading 200 base cards isn't a great way to make money regardless, let alone when it takes 4 months to get it back.
Yeah. Contrary to the information you'll find out there
right?
You could pay for in a monthly subscription for coaching. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, it's a terrible idea.
If you would have told me that with the market correction we were seeing, we would be talking in such a short time later about extended turnaround times pricing increase doesn't surprise anyone anymore with anything in the world. But that surprises me a little bit. We're definitely seeing something happen. We're going to jump into that in just a second. But before we do, Jackson Merrill may be good at some things, but
he's really good at baseball.
Answering questions about taking taking autographs and signing cards is not a strength of his.
Well, he was honest.
Oh, he was honest.
If you missed this, Jackson Merrill was interviewed by The Athletic this week. And it was a very wide-ranging interview, but one of the things that came up is something that has been kind of a hobby thing since he was in the Rookie of the Year running and eventually won Rookie of the Year last year.
Yeah.
And it's become an even more big thing now that he's following that Rookie of the Year campaign up with a really good start to this season. His autograph transitioned from a somewhat semblance of an actual autograph to a J, basically. And he was interviewed by The Athletic, and they asked him about this, and his response was honest and hilarious and terrible. He said, it's not that I don't care about baseball cards and stuff. So obviously he doesn't care about baseball cards.
And stuff.
But the next sentence was, it's just if you didn't care about something, you wouldn't want to do it either.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, I don't care about baseball cards. It's not that I don't care about baseball cards and stuff. I just don't care about them. Here's the problem. This isn't some stuff he's doing out of the goodness of his heart for free.
Yeah.
Dude is getting paid, I'm going to guess, somewhere in the vicinity of $25 to $30 for every time he does this with his hand.
Yeah.
So like anything else in life, just a tip for all of you out there, Jackson Merrill, you're not hearing this. I'm 100% sure of it. But if for some reason you do, take as much pride in what you're getting paid to do anywhere as you do on the baseball field.
Yeah, because it's like this idea of like, there's a world where we have a job and we like every single aspect of it.
Right. That's a fantasy I've had to break both of my children up.
Bro, you're already playing baseball for a good living.
Yeah, you just signed a, $180 million
I know we're coming across like shut up and dribble, but that's not what we're going for here. It's like this is contractually part of the deal.
Take pride in what you do.
Yeah.
Take pride in whatever you do in life.
I would get out a quill pen, like from the Declaration of Independence. If I was getting $25 to $30 a signature,
that would be amazing.
I would learn calligraphy, bro.
Those cards would be scratched.
All right, I don't care. I mean, but it's just like, let's get this in perspective. I'm not saying I don't care about this and stuff, but what I'm saying, it's like in a negotiation. What I'm not trying to say is whatever comes out of their mouth next is usually exactly what they're trying to say.
Yep.
Carrying over from the PSA conversation, this is perhaps the most interesting story to me of what's happening in the hobby right now. Sports Card Dad dropped a video last week where he was talking about this article, Collect Row. I saw it in Yahoo Sports. They linked the article in there. In March of 2025, this year, with all of the crazy political, economical climate that's going on, discussions of affordability, groceries, and all that, in this March, $330 million in sports card transactions took place. Verified sales we're talking about, according to Card Ladder. Now, Card Ladder is an aggregate. Now, we pay for a subscription with it. There is a free version as well, but it is a big differentiator is, one, how quickly you're able to pull the sales, but these are verified sales through not only eBay, but Golden, Heritage, all of the other spots where you might see that
reportable
take place.
platform,
yes. Not just the, and in some of the data, which I know this has recently changed, if somebody had a best offer, it would even show the amount that was sold for. Now, there's some changes with eBay on that. I'm not sure that the aggregate is changed yet.
Card Ladder's still getting the correct information. So, all eBay did was make it so that when a best offer is accepted, there's no longer a line through it. Yeah.
What's strange about this is when you compare that to Q1 of 2021, the height of the COVID boom, if you will, in the hobby, we are pushing similar numbers. What makes this even crazier when you take a deeper dive is while this accounts for eBay sales, Fanatics Live, Golden, Heritage, it has nothing to do with Whatnot sales.
Because Whatnot doesn't have a mechanism to report.
So this emerging giant in the hobby where not only wax sales but single sales are happening at an astronomical rate. It's continuing to grow. The live selling market is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's not even being accounted for.
No, and the really interesting part of that to me, when you brought this to my attention, because I didn't see this, Jason was like, hey, you need to look at this. When we see this type of a trend across any market, it's usually an indicator, especially in what everybody else is considering people are losing their minds over the price of eggs, but people are spending money on cardboard. And we're seeing it at shows too. Yeah. Like the traffic at shows is way up. Yeah. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're fine. Another part of the article was discussing grading submissions, and year over year, the bulk number of grading submissions is up 13%, despite the gem rate, meaning how many tens are being handed out, being way down. The last time something like this happened, there was economic turmoil, a lot of uncertainty, crazy variability in the market as a whole, yet this hobby saw the greatest growth and boom that they had seen in 15 to 20 years.
Yeah.
Following that, we had what people thought was a correction, which is like in Ohio, fake spring. Like, that's not the correction yet. Then we had the correction that a lot of people really lost out on. A lot of people lost some money on that didn't quite understand how to invest in cards, how to flip, how to run a business, how allocations work, how allocations could change. And so we find ourselves in this spot. There's a lot of money moving into this market once again. There's economic uncertainty that didn't seem to stop the market before.
No, as a matter of fact, it heated it up.
So are we potentially heading towards a year of significant growth, a boom? Is this just a coincidence? And what would be the implications of that if this is happening?
I think that anytime you see indicators, it's smart to ask yourself those questions. The biggest question is, if this is happening, what mechanisms can I use to take advantage of it? Kind of goes back to the value box segment last week. It may be a really good time to start looking at how to sell what you have. The people who did really well through the last boom are the people who were collecting long before that boom occurred.
Right.
The people who had bought Luka PSA 10 rookies for $40 and were selling them for $800.
Right.
I don't know that we'll see that kind of a spike, only because that was such a perfect storm of everybody's at home. Everybody's getting tossed a few $1,000s this year from the government because they haven't been working. And for some people, that became disposable income. For a lot of people, it was essential income. Well, for some people, it was disposable.
I think a lot more than want to admit it became disposable income, but it shouldn't have been.
But it did. It became disposable income, and they put it into stuff. And it was a time where you would buy something on Tuesday, and before it got to you that Friday or Saturday, it had doubled in value. Yeah. So I don't know that we're going to see that, but I do think it's really important to ask those questions. What are the things that I would do? So have you thought about that? What are the things you would do? I did,
and you're going to be shocked to hear this, but I started with the negatives. What would I not do?
Okay.
And where did I see people lose? One of the biggest mistakes I think people made the last time there was a boom was believing in bulk grading low-end base rookies.
Yeah.
Products like Prism and all this. Now, here's the reality. If there's a boom, some of those are going to pop off, and some people will win. But a lot of people are going to be on the hook for $25. With that boom comes the volatility. What that means is when a card's spiking 100%, let's talk about football season. Let's say this going into football season, we're full steam ahead, and Caleb Williams has a lot of hype from camp, right? People were like, hey, this is the year. He's dialed in. He's comfortable now. He's going to bring a lot to the table. And you've graded off 20 of his cards, and he underperforms for the first 2 weeks of the year because he's still a young quarterback. Be prepared for those pre-game one prices to plummet. The volatility is something to really watch out for. So that would be like the first thing I would say. Remind yourself, while there's a boom, volatility increases as well, which could also mean you would lose it just as fast, if not faster, than you had those gains.
Yeah. For me, the answer is something that I've already been doing, and I think it accelerates.
Hey, don't forget to pat yourself on the back. You expect it at this point.
The market that I have been diving into, when I see things like this, the question becomes, how does it parallel the non-booms? Where do we see it? Because that's where you're going to see the biggest potential gains without loss, right? Because that's the key here. Like Jason was saying, if you are risk averse, there's a few plays you can still make money. For me, that is the late 90s to mid 2000s, Topps Chrome color, the early Panini stuff that's shiny, and refractors from when those things were. And here's why. We are about to hit the point where people who were kids and teenagers during that period of time are now to the point in their life where their kids are just about out of the house and they're about to have disposable income. And they're going to want to relive that childhood. Yeah. It's exactly what happened to what we can think of as the vintage market about 20 years ago. 25 years ago, you could buy nice vintage stuff pretty cheap. Like maybe not 52 Mantles, but in the 80s, you could buy 52 Mantles for $1,000, $800 to $1,500 depending on condition. Now it's a $50,000 card if it's not bent in half. Because
we're not saying ultra modern is going to climb to that.
No,
that's not the parallel here.
No, although 30, 40 years from now, it may be that point, right? So the thing is what is going to happen where the bulk of disposable income in the hobby that isn't flipper dollars, right, is going to go? Because people buying vintage, a lot of times, they're not flippers, they're end users. So where's the end user money going to transition to? And in my opinion, that's where. So whenever I have the opportunity to buy stuff like that that's nice, I grab it. I bought a card this week that falls into that category. Walked up to the table to show. I should have brought it with me to show you. We'll throw a picture of it up on our Instagram. That way you guys can see it. I was in a TikTok video that I did, just a pickups video. But it is a 2012 Panini Preferred. It's numbered to 25. And it's actually jersey numbered to LeBron, 6 of 25, because he was on the Heat at the time. That was his jersey number. It's game used, 3-color patch of LeBron, 2-color Kobe, 3-color Derrick Rose, 3-color Dirk Nowitzki, 3-color Steve Nash, and 2-color Kevin Garnett. The card has literally never sold publicly anywhere. That's the type of stuff that I think is going to explode next. And this type of a situation, it allows you to ride off some of the volatility. You might pay a little bit stronger for it, but it's not going to be as volatile, and it still has huge upside.
Yeah, I'll dive a little deeper and piggybacking off of what you said. One thing I remember seeing last year where I was like, I wish I was in a position with cash to make some of these moves is we saw a conversation that was directly affecting the market about this Hall of Fame player never really got enough love.
Right.
So what we were seeing were examples of players like I remember the NBA players that popped off that were just like superstars. Like you had Steve Nash's market went up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Allen Iverson. A lot of players through that era who, if we look at like their base rookies right now, we're like, that just still doesn't seem quite enough for the collectability, fan base, all that. It is a less volatile approach than ultra modern chasing.
Sure.
And you can hedge your bets because you know how truly rare over a 3-year window this set was.
Yes.
With what we see Fanatics doing right now, there's some of you saying, like, this is a 101, this is a debut patch. Guess what happened after the debut patch? We're getting a bunch more patches. Not the same, but we're going to see more and more of that stuff. Fanatics is going to respond in real time to add more scarcity to the market if there's a boom. If I'm looking back 15 to 20 years and I have a player that I think is still undervalued and the consensus with other collectors, yeah, why doesn't that go for more? I would maybe chase after the high grade, short printed, that price point that may be just a tiny bit uncomfortable, but believing that if this market is rising, that will happen with it because we saw it happen.
Well, look at what the Jordan insert market has done.
Yeah.
The Jordan insert market is a perfect example. The stuff was never cheap, but 5 years ago, it was 25% of what it is now.
Yeah.
2 years ago, it was half of what it is now.
Yeah.
So
find a die cut now. You're like,
it's impossible.
I think this is what it's worth, but I'm going to look it up because this could be huge.
Yeah. And the Kobe market is starting to do the same thing. So there's plenty of opportunity. In my opinion, that's where the biggest opportunity is right now.
I've got one more that I think is the biggest opportunity.
And
I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a surprise to you, but a lot of you listening or watching this won't be shocked that I say it, but you'll be surprised when you think about it. If you have the time and there's a boom happening, which is a question mark, right? We're not saying it's officially happening. We're saying this data is interesting to us and a little bit surprising. And we've seen this before. If you have the time to put in to a high volume, low end market, if you have a bunch of 5-row boxes sitting around, now is the time to scan your cards, list your cards, get them up high volume. I am pumped at the thought of the market picking up, and I have 40 to 50,000 cards ready to go.
Right, already
mostly
listed.
Superstars, mostly Hall of Famers, rookies, inserts. Not big, but you talk about liquidity. I could churn through $50,000 or $100,000 of inventory in a very short amount of time.
Perfect example. We were just looking at a card this morning. We bought a little lot for Whatnot, and there was a bunch of older Jordan stuff, not anything big. A card I thought was a little bit bigger.
MJ exclusive subset. Yep.
Yeah, out of Upper Deck MVP. The cards sell for $2 to $7. But we were looked at 3 days worth of sales data. It had to have been 150 of them that sold.
Yeah.
Like, if you have something like that, it will sell.
Yeah.
It'll sell.
Yep.
List it, it'll sell.
The low end market is what people are going to sleep on because people are going to be grading and flipping. They're going to revert to a lot of people that were in the hobby 5 years are going to revert to what they thought worked before. To do that, a lot of them are going to want to free up cash to buy bigger cards. If you have time to work, now's the time to try to buy up low end bulk. If you don't have time to put into this, you're throwing money away.
Yeah.
But if you have the time to put in, I think what happens, the values will climb on some of these. I'm not going to go back and reprice these $2 and $3 and $5 cards.
They're going to sell fast.
I want them to sell like hotcakes. And so I think that's what will happen if we see a boom with this. We'll keep you updated on this. My eBay store will probably be a decent indicator of what's happening to the low-end market with there being tens of thousands in there. And if we start to see that consistently climbing, last week was much bigger than I've seen
in a while.
In sales in quite a while and consistently like that over the whole week.
Yeah.
But as we know, who knows what eBay's up to? That can change quickly. So I guess we call that boom, question mark.
Yeah.
Be ready. Be thinking about it.
Yeah. Think about how you would approach it. Yeah.
Before we jump into the value box, which I'm really excited about this week, I know you're not, but I'm just kidding. I know we're getting ready to jump into that, but we want to talk about one more time today. You'll hear 500 more times, but
correct.
April 24th at 7 p.m. on Whatnot, our first show. We will be live. We want to hang out with you. We want you to shop with us. We want you to see some of the cool cards that we're listing. Follow us, bookmark the show, giveaways all through the night.
Yep.
So we keep saying it. There's a reason for it. We're really excited about it. Hope that you can join us there.
Please do.
All right. You ready to jump into these meat and potatoes?
Yep.
All right. In the value box, we are talking today about buying what we need. This is part of a 4-week series for this segment where we talk through if we were starting to sell cards tomorrow, what will we do? Last week, we mentioned that you should start with what you have. Sell what you have. Anything that you don't need to keep, begin moving through that. We talked through different channels to do that. This one, I think, is going to answer a lot more questions that we've been getting because some people are like, clearly I know, sell what I have. But buying what we need, how do you buy? What kind of inventory do you need? How do you keep buying it? So we're going to walk through that. Then the following 2 weeks will be negotiating deals, whether it's buying or selling. And then finally, how do you scale that into a business that's growing? So let's talk through buying what we need. What do you need? If I ask you right now, what kind of inventory do you need? What would you say?
Right now, I probably need more mid-range liquid flipper inventory.
Okay, what era of cards would that be, or what would you target?
That's not an era question.
Okay,
really,
then what do
me.
you mean by flipper?
Stuff that I can buy and somebody else can buy and still have margin on.
Okay.
Right now.
So what does that not mean for you?
Right
now,
like
a downtown would be a tough one to do that with.
Well, no, I'd love to be able to buy downtowns at the margin.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That'd be a tough.
Yeah, it's a tough one to do it with.
I gave you the perfect example, and you're like, I'd debate that.
I do occasionally get to buy them at the right
that's
margins.
That's a steal, is what they call that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. For me, that is PSA 10 slabs of the right players or rookies of the right players, or relatively liquid numbered autos of ultra modern stuff.
Okay.
That would be the best way I could answer that.
Well, you did.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. For me, I would say I need more of the $5 to $10 low end ultra modern, and then I need more of the $30 to $75 ultra modern, like affordable slabs.
Yeah.
Really targeted Hall of Fame autos over the last few months. Those have been moving, but the ultra modern stuff, when I get it right and price it right, it's moving faster.
Yes.
So that would be my answer for that. Every single one of us is going to have a different answer for what we need. And some of you are saying, I don't even know where to start with that
answer is
question.
going to change over time.
Absolutely.
Like, you're going to load up on one thing, and you're going to need something else. So, yeah.
So we're going to break down what kind of inventory do you want to sell? If you can answer that question, here's the inventory that I'm looking for. And it seems so tough because at first the answer is anything I can get a good deal on and make money on. Well, in theory, that's true.
Yeah.
But you're going to find yourself very exhausted trying to buy everything. And the more niche down you get may feel restrictive, but you're going to find yourself much more productive and focused in your sales. You're going to find better relationships with people that sell to you on a regular basis because they know what you are trying to buy and how much you're trying to spend on it. And your repeat customers will know that this is what you're stocking. So that's my opinion. Do you agree with that? If you can niche down on it?
Yes. The only thing that I would say that you need to have as a question in between there is, what are you trying to accomplish with buying and selling?
Yeah.
If you're just kind of occasionally buying and selling, you're not setting up at shows all the time, you're just doing stuff on eBay, then I think you're 100% correct. Niching down is very, very helpful. Mm-hmm. If you're setting up at shows a lot, you can niche, but you still need to have a variety.
Sure.
Otherwise, you're only going to get 3 or 4 people out of every 100 that buy. If you're a hockey only guy, you better move to Canada.
Well, but specifically, we're talking about buying what we need for inventory.
Right.
So, like, what we're actively looking for. If really nice vintage walks up to my table and I can get it at a deal, I'm getting it every time.
Yes.
The patch that Gary got, I got scared on the comps and the price point. I think you'll do very well on it. So I was like, hey, talk to Gary. This is right up his alley, knowing that this is the type of stuff that I like a few more data points because I don't have quite as much experience as Gary does in this space, especially at shows. He's somebody that's like, oh, I think this will do this for me. No brainer. And it falls within that niche of what you're actually
Sometimes I'm wrong, but usually I end up doing pretty well on those things.
But that is the right question. What am I trying to do with this? What am I trying to sell? So we're going to walk through just some bullet points that'll maybe help you kind of refine what type of inventory you're looking for if you're starting a business, questions you should be asking yourself, but perhaps some of the more important ones that'll help you drill down to not feeling so overwhelmed with getting started.
Right.
That's a goal. So number one, perhaps the most important thing whenever you're buying anything for inventory. Reminder, this has nothing to do with what you collect. I know we're going to have 20 comments like, just buy what you like. Who cares? Selling's ruining the hobby. But you're going to a show and you're buying the cards that you like from somebody who's selling them. So let's not forget that part too. Okay. Number one, the thing that's talked about all the time in the sports card market is liquidity.
Define that for us, because I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding of what that means.
Yes. Liquid, for me, means that this is something that the market will respond to quickly, and it has a quick sell-through rate. Meaning, if I buy this card, it's probably not going to sit in the showcase, if priced correctly, for a very long time. There will be a lot of interest, and people will be ready to move on this. When I sell this card, it might sell 5 more times in the next month because of how liquid the card is.
What's a good indicator of liquidity? Because I have an answer, but I want to see if yours is the same.
Well, one thing that I do as an eBay person is you can actually check sell-through rate. So
there it is.
You can search a player in eBay. It will give you this and check the sold results. And it's going to, so let's say it's Caitlin Clark right now, who is probably the most liquid athlete in the sports card hobby at this moment.
Pretty damn close.
You search Caitlin Clark, it will show you how many active listings there are. If you're on mobile, you might have to scroll down for it, but it'll give you, let's say it's like 10,000. If you click solds, it's going to show you how many Caitlin Clark cards have sold in the last 90 days. You can compare the number of solds to the number that's been listed, and there's a percentage that will give you a sell-through rate of over a 90-day window. Caitlin Clark tends to sell X percentage of the time in 90 days. Okay? So you can drill down with that. Like you could do variation orange laser Caitlin Clark, right? You can get specific. The more specific and detailed you get, the less accurate and the less data you're going to have around that, especially if it's a pretty rare card. But in a snapshot general way, that's a good answer. I think another one is what's moving for you on a regular basis. Who are people asking for?
And I think that to simplify what Jason was talking about, if you don't want to get that deep in the weeds, pull up the card you're looking at, 2024 Prism, Caitlin Clark, number 22. That's the true silver, right? And ask me how I know. I've sold a lot of Caitlin Clark in the last 2 months. That's the true. Start scrolling. You will get to 300 sales before you get 2 weeks deep. That's a liquid card.
Yeah.
If there's a lot of it selling in a short period of time, it doesn't necessarily matter how many are listed. You're going to sell the card if you get it right and you price it right. So I think a lot of people don't understand what the term liquidity means. So I wanted to make sure we
I think that's really helpful. And the higher the liquidity, the more aggressive I'm willing to pay. I'm not going to break my own rules that I've written for myself, but I will get more aggressive or try to bulk and buy more of those liquid cards from somebody to get that percentage right.
That's a really good point without getting too far off the rails, but it does fall into this. We've talked about this prior, but when you're buying, especially if this is a business for you, you need to have margin rules and don't break them at all. Do what Jason said. If you need to be at a 30% margin, that means you need to buy at 70% of what you're going to sell it at, right? If that's where you need to be, and somebody only wants to sell their card at 80%, try to add more cards until you can get the overall.
One question that'll help is, do you have anything else similar to this where you have maybe a little more room where you can still make what you need, but it would help me with the value of this purchase?
Yeah.
We'll get into negotiation a lot more next week, but liquidity is huge. What players are selling? What players to avoid? So if you are a Will Clark super collector, right? Liquidity has nothing to do with how great an athlete was.
Nothing.
Liquidity has nothing to do with how much you like someone. Liquidity has nothing to do with how pretty their auto is. Although there are some autographs like Johnny Bench that have a beautiful autograph, and that is collectible, right? Will Clark is a great example. He's not very liquid. He has a lot of content out there where it's relevant. He does like podcasts and stuff. I don't know that he's the most liked athlete out there from the stories that I've heard, but he does have some major fans, and man, he can hit the ball. That doesn't make him liquid.
Right.
It doesn't make him somebody sells quickly. I'll still buy Will Clark, but I'm not out looking for it. It's probably that card that's getting thrown in. I'm like, will this sell eventually? All right, liquidity. The next one that you have to talk about, and this is where you're going to kind of find your own flavor of what you think makes sense, is scarcity. So when we look at scarcity and we're making a buy, is this rare? Now, scarcity hurts and helps. Let's talk about the ways that it could hurt you. So if you put a card out there that's scarce, hard to find, obscure, it may carry a great value, right? It may be worth something, but until somebody spends money on it, it really isn't worth anything. That's important.
The thing with scarcity, it's very simple. Oftentimes, if you're buying based on scarcity, you are selling to an end user. Right?
What does that mean, end user? I think that's important.
The collector. You're selling to somebody who's buying it for their personal collection. Now, they may eventually want to sell it, but that's not their purpose in buying it. I think it's really important to state, in my experience at shows, probably 65 to 70% of people who are buying stuff from my table are buying it with the intention of either reselling it quickly or selling it relatively soon. Okay?
Yeah.
25 to 30% at the most are collectors buying it without the short-term intention to make money on it.
And that's not saying that every one of those people are just flippers.
No.
This is an expensive hobby.
Yes.
So I think there's probably a chunk of that percentage that aren't just trying to flip this. It's just like, if I buy this card, I'd like to have it. Do I think that
I can make money on it to fund the hobby for myself? Which is nothing. When I make that clarification, that's not me crapping on the people who are flipping stuff. They're some of my best customers.
Right.
That's why I buy where I buy, because I know I'm going to have to sell and give them some meat on the bone.
And why liquidity matters so much,
But Jason will be the first one to tell you, one of the things that I love to be able to tell people when they look at stuff.
You
in
like
my
it a little
showcases.
too much.
I do. I'm not going to lie. I do. But I like to be able to tell somebody, like with this LeBron patch we were just talking about, if you don't like my price, I guess you could go try to find another one.
Yep.
It's literally never sold publicly and it's never been available. So, yeah, I have an of 10 Jamar Chase sitting in my showcase right now.
So for some of you, that sounds like, heck yeah, that's awesome. I love to tell people to just, like, if you don't like it, forget it. You're not getting it. But there's some of you that are going to be more concerned with how long that $300 rare card has been sitting and parked in your showcase.
Yep.
So for Gary, he doesn't mind that. I'm somebody that if it's been 6 months, like, for example, right now, that Cassius Clay in the BBG 8.5 is a card that has been taken out of the showcase and admired over and over and over. There is one comp that is way lower than all the others. It is in a BVG 8.5 and one sold at like $850. However, a PSA 8 still carries a value of $3,500 to $5,000, and they sell a couple times a year.
Yeah.
So it's a card where I get to say that all the time to people when I'm priced below the 8 by like $1,000, but that doesn't mean I'm selling it. That doesn't mean I'm making money.
Yep.
So it's a two-way street. To the collector, though, when you're negotiating, that statement of, I mean, it's hard to find. You're probably going to have to go try to find another one if you're needing to get to that price point. I just can't get there. There's a lot of times that will at least help them to consider and realize that scarcity does drive the value.
Now, that doesn't mean that you can be on crack with the way you price things, right? So I have that of 10 Jamar Chase from this year's Prism. It's the green disco. I'm not sure which box it was out of. There's like 84 different retail SKUs of Prism. There have been several gold sales, which are also 10. I realize golds carry a pretty heavy premium, but they're anywhere from $350 to $600, right? There has been one sale of this of 10 that was very low. It was like $140, $142. That's silly. There's no other ones available, and it's never sold other than that. I'm not selling this one for $140. I'm just not. Yep. It's not happening. Eventually, someone who's a Jamar Chase collector will buy it, or another one will sell for quite a bit higher than the $140, and then somebody will be more comfortable buying it.
Or a year and a half from now, that doesn't happen, and at that point, you're going to say, okay,
yeah,
the market has responded. It has been enough time. I should consider trading this.
Yep.
That's a play. Trading it so you can get a little more value, or maybe it's time to just unload this. Man, I'm surprised, and that happens a lot.
And sometimes you have to take a loss.
Did this card not move? Like there are cards that you're gonna take a little bit of a loss on, but overall the scarcity does have an impact in that. Yeah. Mine like that is my Urlacher Playoff Contenders rookie auto.
You had a couple people ask about that this weekend.
I am $70 over the last comp or two, and I don't care.
Yeah,
it's 2000 Playoff Contenders auto. It's Brian Urlacher.
You just don't see too often.
At the time I purchased
10 to 12 times a year.
Yeah, at the time I purchased this, there's one available for $600.
Yeah,
which is a stupid price.
Yeah.
So the people that are wanting to flip are sometimes almost offended this and that. But what I'll tell them too is, and we're getting too much in negotiation, but hey, I do have some stuff similar to this that I have a little. I can work with you a little more on comps just to see if they're nibbling or they're lowballing. Right.
Yep.
Scarcity. Up next, margin. This should be a shorter answer for us.
Yes.
Yours is, for the most part, pretty cut and dry.
It's for the most part pretty cut and dry. I have bands. So if a card's worth less than like $20, which is not my wheelhouse, it's not what I tend to carry. I probably ought to carry a little more of it, but I just don't. It's all value box stuff. I pay 50%. If you want to unload a bunch of that stuff,
it's usually going to be a stack.
It's going to be a stack. I'm going to pay 50%. If you're not looking to do that, that's cool. But for me, paying $8 for a $10 card makes no sense. It just doesn't make any sense. But beyond that, then it's just banded. For me, I will max out, and it has to be back to liquid or something super scarce, but of the right player. I max out at 80%. I shoot for about 70. I'll be okay at 75, but unless it's something I really want or need or think I can move fast, I'm not crashing past 75. And anybody who's paying more than that is doing it for one of two reasons. Or three reasons. So either this is not what they do for a living, which is fine. 100% fine. If this is not what you do for a living, go nuts. Or it is somebody who doesn't care how much they're spending because the content they're making with it is making the money for them, which is also perfectly fine. Or they're a repacker, which is also perfectly fine.
There's a third category that's a little more rare.
What's that?
And that would be they only work with really high-end cards.
Yeah,
there's not many people doing that effectively.
Yeah, if you're 10,000 plus in the cards that you carry, you can get a little more aggressive. But
I think
you got to have a market to sell those to.
The only example I know of this is somebody with credibility is King of the Cards. He does 1,000 up to 5 figures is what he targets. Now I've seen him make a lot of those purchases at 70%.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about a $5,000 card and you are sure that it is liquid enough and scarce enough to move at whatever you believe 100% is, 85% might make sense because that can be $1,000. That can be $500.
Yeah.
But you have to rinse and repeat this, which we'll talk about in a minute. You have to be able to do this a lot. For me, the percentage, anything under $20, $30, I'm trying to stay around 65% or less. I'm okay spending a little bit more than Gary is, but I'm also have another channel to move low-end cards. So if something wouldn't move in my showcase, I can get that on eBay. I've already got that engine running. Cards a little bit larger than that, I try to be under 75%. And then the farthest I'll reach is if it was it's going to have to, I think I spent 80% on a Paul Skeens auto that was worth about $1,000.
Yeah.
That's about as far as I will reach with that because of volatility, especially ultra modern. That can change so quickly.
Yep.
With one Tommy John surgery.
And you sold that thing the same day though. So
same day, and I made money, but you don't want to know the percentage.
Yeah.
Because I got scared. I was like, it's aggressive. Take my money. Yeah. All right. Here we go. Or let me get your money. All right. Price point. So it is going to be important for you to decide if you're starting a business. Are you trying to target a certain price point range? For some people, it may be, no, I'm just going after this era. I've niched down, and I have a percentage, and whatever falls within that is fine. For others, they're trying to target a price point. Currently, my price point that I'm finding is keeping everything moving for me is $50 to about $300 is something that I see move a lot through the shows. And then on my eBay store, I've gone lower and lower and lower with what I'm trying to put in there. Mostly because eBay's lack of awareness for ever backing up the seller in any situation. So I'd rather be on the hook for a few $5 refunds or $10 than $500 card because eBay's incompetent. So that's the price point I'm trying to target. Where would you say?
For me, it's not so much a price point question. I'm one of those people who is at the point in my business where people ask me, they walk up to the table at shows, hey, what are you buying? My answer is always the same. Anything that makes sense. So it's not so much a price point thing for me, although if you put a gun to my head about it, it would be $50 to $5,000. I really don't want to look at a bunch of low-end stuff. Somebody brings a Zion case and it's a bunch of top-loaded base paper rookies of guys in the most recent class. I'm just not the buyer for that unless they're selling it at a dime a piece.
If you're forced to average out your showcases, ballpark guess of what do you think?
Showcases?
Yep, your showcases.
$250 a card,
okay.
But as low as $50 and as high as $3,000.
Yep. Okay. There's not a right or wrong answer. 2 years ago, there's no way I would have been targeting $50 to $300.
Right.
So some of you that doesn't sound like much, but when you realize that larger shows, you need a couple days worth of inventory.
Yeah.
And you need stuff that moves quickly, and you have to be able to rinse and repeat. Like, it is very important to consider where those price points would be. There are people we know that absolutely crush it at card shows that don't put anything out that's even $50.
They just put out dozens of 4-row boxes
and it's the
at 50
right
cents
kind
a
of
piece.
stuff. It's stuff that whatnot sellers are buying because they think they can get, maybe they think they can get it at a decent price and they can get full comps, or maybe the room will get crowded and it'll be over full comps, but you can do it with value boxes. Up next, don't be afraid of rejection.
Yeah,
it's pretty straightforward. Simple. It's going to happen a lot. You're going to try to buy something. You're going to try to get it at a margin. They're going to sound interested, and then they're going to give you one outlier comp that's way more than what you think the value of the card is. Or they simply don't care that you want margin. They want what the card's worth, not what you're willing to offer that day. People that don't make it in the hobby selling are people that get offended by that.
Right. Yeah, and same thing with buying. When somebody walks up to the table hey, what are you looking for? I try, especially when I see certain types of cards, as I start flipping through their stuff and I see a lot of like case hits and things like that. Before I spend more than another 2 minutes, I say, hey, before I get too deep in this, where do you need to be percentage-wise on this stuff? Because if it's over 80, I'm not your guy. Right. It's okay. There's probably a few guys around here that are going to be stronger than me. I'm just not your guy. And if they need to be over 80, they'll be like, oh, yeah, I need to be 92, 93. Hey, cool. You need to find one of the repackers that's walking the show. They're here, and they'll be able to cash you out. Like, I'll even point them to them because I want to be helpful. I want them to bring me their other stuff that they don't need that out of.
That's a good point.
So I'll try to send them to the right people. We have a couple of friends who pay a little stronger on some of those things than we do. I send people to them, and vice versa. They'll send baseball stuff to me because it's not where they live. So make sure that you are okay saying this is where I need to be. If it doesn't work for you, cool. Now, if somebody gets super offended by that, just don't let yourself get sucked in. I used to be really bad about letting myself get sucked into these ego battles with people. Jason would just laugh at me. But it's not worth it. You just say, hey, I'm sorry you're upset, man. It's not a big deal. This is just how I pay my bills. So for me to buy it, I've got to be able to make some money on it. I understand if you don't want to sell it to me. It's okay. No big deal.
And a lot of times they'll start complaining about the same interaction that they just had with 5 other dealers. Don't forget, there's a lot of degenerate gamblers who are actually feeling pressure to pay their bills by selling cards that day.
Yeah.
And when they start realizing that they're not going to come home with $5,000, they're going to come home with $2,000 based off of what everybody's offering them because they were told on the stream. Well, they're told when they hit a card, this is a $500 card. And then they don't comp it. It's actually a $200 card. And then you're coming in and offering $150 as a strong offer.
Yeah.
Like, that's just kind of how that works. So don't get offended by it. Be polite. If people are pushing and nobody will give me this and that, I try this. Like, hey, I've only been doing this for an income for a little while. It's really not that hard to grab a table. The guy that puts the show together is right over there. Like, you should do this. You should do this.
Yeah.
And sometimes people do, and they're thanking you for it. And other times you realize they're just trying to push you into a decision you're not going to make. So don't be afraid of rejection. The next one's super important. Don't get attached. If you are doing this to make money, all right, it's different from just collecting.
Correct.
Do not get emotionally attached to the card because you are going to make clouded decisions and judgment as it's happening. You know how I know? I dated when I was in high school. It is easy to become infatuated, right? And to be a stupid teenager, and everything changes. The whole world, that emotional attachment to the card can really hurt you. You're going to hold out for a number that may not ever happen. 1 out of 10 times, maybe the card does go up a little bit in value. But if you're attached emotionally to the card, you're going to have a tough time making money. You're going to really have a tough time making a business out of this. That's a strong opinion, but that's how I feel.
Well, it's the truth. And both sides of it. You can't get attached to the stuff that you're trying to sell. And if somebody walks up something cool to your table that you'd really like to buy, don't get so attached to it that you break your own rules.
Unless you have budgeted PC stuff. Like, hey, if this walks up.
The nice thing for me is my PCs are never anything that anybody walks up to the table with. So have really obscure PCs that nobody else cares about is a really good tip if you want to be a dealer.
Yeah. PCing Marino is tough.
Yeah, PC Ed Oliver is real easy.
I had to bow out of Ichiro because he's too expensive. Yeah. I can't. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't put cards out that you're attached to and put a large price tag on them. When people ask about it, you just say, hey, I agree. That's a beautiful card. It is a PC card of mine. Here's who I PC. That's the number it's going to take for me to let go of it just because I really like it.
I call those marketing cards.
Yeah, you can draw people to the table.
If you have a card that is super unique, that looks really awesome, and that's super rare, I don't care if it sells. We're in Ohio. One of the most popular baseball players over the last 15 years in Ohio is Joey Votto. Everybody that's a Reds fan loves Joey Votto. I always try, and right now I don't have one, but I always try to have a really unique, really cool Joey Votto card in my showcase. It might take 6 to 8 months for that card to sell. It will always eventually sell, but you know what happens at every show? 50 to 100 people are like, man, that card is awesome. And they'll look at it, and then they'll see the cards I put around it strategically. Mm-hmm. And of those 50 to 100 people, 10 to 15 will buy the cards around it.
Yeah.
It's a marketing card, and you might pay a little stronger for a marketing card, but think of it as a marketing expense.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Emotional attachment can really hurt you. I see it more with people that spend a lot of money ripping wax, which is another reminder for the fourth time in the last
Rip
4
wax.
episodes. Ripping wax, opening new products to generate revenue is a really, really bad business idea.
Bad.
And that is where a lot of the emotional attachment comes in, because they realize the loss that they've already taken and they're trying to make up for the other 8 packs that didn't have a hit.
Yeah.
So be careful with that. Finally, I know this is like we're putting the screws to everybody, making this a little bit more forward than typical, but this is a grind. Whatever your strategy is, you're going to have to repeat it.
Work.
It's really important finally to consider that whatever your buying strategy is, when you run your Whatnot show, you have to do it again after the show's over. When you set up at 2 card shows this month and your inventory's wiped out, you have to be able to buy a lot. When your eBay store has been hit or it's getting stale, you're going to have to introduce new inventory. So you're going to have to do this over and over and over. So don't set metrics that are like, so if that's the case and I buy at 85% and you're saying I can make money on cards over 1,000, I'm only going to target cards from 1 to 5,000. They're going to be super liquid. I'm going to pay up to 90%, blah, blah, blah. If you could, by chance, fill out a showcase like that in 1 month, which is possible, you maybe have cash to do that, that's fine, and you may work through that, but you're going to find everyone offering under what you paid for it.
Yep.
When it sells, being able to do that on a regular basis, hopefully you're flying to all the biggest shows nationally every month. And I really hope that you have enough cash to sit on some of these when a player gets injured or a rookie is hurt. I can't do that. I can't justify that because in my mind, I can't repeat that process yet in a way that's scalable. The reason I started a low-end eBay inventory in a high-volume store was because it eliminated the biggest X factor for most people in the card business: restocking, sourcing inventory. And when I talk about doing that, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've 20x to $500 purchase just because I can buy in bulk. Somewhere between those two worlds is where most of us live. The high-end, small margins and huge margins on cheap stuff that'll sit there a while. It takes some time. But you're going to have to make a decision how you're going to buy.
Yep.
This has been the Value Box.
Yeah. Long segment, but hopefully you found a lot of value in that.
Up next, low-end liquid. This is a commitment I made that I will share my vast knowledge of the low-end card market and point out products that, for me, have been rather liquid and that you can find dirt cheap in dime boxes, quarter boxes, or in bulk.
And I have nothing to add to this segment, so take it away.
Last week we talked about sportscasters. They're a little more oddball, oversized card. They are very liquid. If you just search eBay today, sportscaster and sold, you're going to see a ton of listings of the most recent sold with the Ball Card Store logo underneath it. It felt kind of cool when I looked that up. I didn't realize it. But these are all cards that I listed in the last month. This week I want to talk about a subset that is super common, that is all over the dime boxes, that has been very liquid for me, and that is the Topps 35th anniversary subset. Comes out in every release of the Paper Topps product. Topps Chrome, do they release it as well, or is just the silver packs?
It's just the silver packs, yeah.
So this is something every year that releases. It's a throwback to a design from 35 years ago. And there's 2 different variations, if you will. There are numbered, there are parallels, there are autos, but we're talking about the cheap, baby, the low-end liquid. So up first, I just have the paper, the 35th anniversary. This is a Frank Thomas. When I buy this subset in the paper product, not the silver pack product, I'm buying Hall of Fame or highly collectible PC players. Your Frank Thomas, your Mantles, your throwback to the vintage Lou Gehrig's,
Ichiro,
Bonds, yes, all those big names. You get them in there. The reason these get pitched is because people are chasing hits and they just move through this stuff because they're not collecting it. This is a sneaky subset that people are building.
Yeah.
People love to build this set. What that means is if you have this available on eBay and you have 4 or 5 of them and they just dropped and they're all liquid, you're probably going to sell multiple quantity. Now, when it comes to the silver pack variations, which you can see are shiny and pretty and all that, this is where
Mojo.
Yeah, the Mojos. The big hits can lie in these for the hobby products because these in an auto or a low number can really fetch a lot. I sold the Yoshi rookie out of 5 for $700.
Yeah.
So that was a nice hit, but these get thrown out. People aren't that interested. For this, you're still chasing. So like this is a McGuire, super collectible, established superstars or Hall of Famers, but the rookie market on these is really well. This is a Hurston Waldrop. This is a pitcher. I do like his stuff. We talked about him in one of our prospecting breakdowns. But this is the type of stuff, like some of these are like $3 for $4, but all day for $2 to $250. So 35th anniversary top subset. Don't just buy anybody. Don't just get a random base, but in the Chrome, go after rookies and stars. And then in the paper, I would go after the Mega Stars Hall of Famers.
And you want to look in quarter and 50-cent boxes for those, right?
I wouldn't spend 50 cents on the paper.
Right.
I would spend 10 cents to a quarter, but that's the type of stuff at a show where if you see there's a lot of it, I ask, hey, I know you got 50 cents on these. If I build a huge stack of this stuff, most of the time I'm getting it for 15 to 20 cents a piece.
Yeah, because guys just want to move.
Yep. All right, that's low end liquid for this week. More to come in the next. And now for your nerdy, hey, we got some feedback. Somebody said this is a great analysis.
Yeah.
I mean, Gary was walking around.
Puffed up
awesome.
a little bit.
The Lookout. The Lookout is a segment where we are on the lookout for a certain player, or to be on the lookout for a certain player that we think is about to pop off. And Gary is going to give you detailed analysis as to why. Go ahead.
Yep, you got it. So this week on the Lookout, the player we're going to talk about is Nolan McLean. Nolan McLean is currently a pitcher for the New York Mets. He is in Double-A. Now, what's interesting about McLean is he was originally drafted in 2022 and didn't sign because he didn't pass a physical. So back to Oklahoma State. Now, at Oklahoma State, he was a two-way player, a la Ohtani. Really good hitter, really good pitcher. In college, he was sitting 94 to 96 with his fastball, touching 98. But he was a hitter. So he was drafted in the third round in 2023 again by the Mets. This time, passed a physical, gets to the Mets minor league system, and is attempting to play two ways. Most of 2023 and up until about July of last year, he was a two-way player, and it wasn't going well. His K rate was around 52%. His chase rate was up over 50%. It just wasn't going well. So the Mets made the decision, hey, okay, you're no longer a hitter. You are just going to be a pitcher. From that point, and before that, as he was doing both things, the pitching wasn't going super well. You saw the stuff. And with minor league pitchers, you're looking at stuff more than you are results. You saw the stuff, but the results were not really there. Well, lo and behold, they pull the plug on the hitting experiment. And from the time they do that through the end of last year, he pitched to a 2.36 ERA and struck out almost 2 batters an inning. This year, more of the same. And his whip right now is, I think, 0.25, which is just ridiculous. He was already on the radar to maybe get a call up this year. If the Mets, one of two things, if they're in contention, I think they bring him up at some point later in the year as a high leverage relief arm. The kid's floor is a really good high leverage reliever that could become a closer. I think there's really strong starter potential there. Fastball flashes semi plus. It doesn't have crazy movement, but it's okay. A 55-ish pitch. His curveball is something he doesn't throw too often. Command is the issue there. The characteristics of the pitcher, fine, but the command isn't great. The slider is wipeout. It's a plus pitch. It's a 70 grade pitch. It's got about 20 inches of horizontal movement. So right-handed batters see this thing coming in, and it looks like a fastball till it's about 6.5 feet from them, and then it's just gone. It's a very effective like back leg pitch to a left-handed batter, just diving it in on them. It has some characteristics of a sweeper, but it's not really a sweeper. It really is a true slider, but because of the amount of horizontal movement, it will sometimes look like a sweeper, but it's not. The cutter is a moderately plus pitch. It's a 55-ish grade pitch too. It's a low 90s, and he does have a pretty effective changeup. It's not a wipeout pitch, but as a taste breaker, as something to just keep batters on their toes, it's there. So you're talking about a 5-pitch arsenal, none of which is a negative pitch. Even the curve, if used in moderation like he uses it, can be really good. Now, he's 23 years old. With pitchers, that's not as big of a deal, especially guys who don't have a lot of innings on their arm at 23, which he doesn't, because at Oklahoma State, he wasn't a full-time starter. I think there's a real chance that he's up. His stuff is still very, very affordable. It's in 23 Bowman draft. You can buy his stuff at a very, very strong price point. All the attention in that Mets organization is on Brandon Sproat. It's not as far as the hobby goes, it's not as much on McLean. And I think you've heard me say it, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. I value floor over ceiling. Sproat has a higher ceiling. McLean has a higher floor because Sproat's range of outcomes is maybe is awful at whatever he does. Also, maybe a perennial all-star. McLean's floor is really good high leverage reliever, like really good high leverage reliever. His ceiling is a number 2 starter. So a guy that you can buy cheap still, that there's a lot of upside for, who I think is up at some point this year, whether it's the Mets are out of contention and they bring him up just to get him major league starts, or whether they're in contention and he is a high leverage relief arm for them.
Yeah. Great analysis.
Thanks, man.
That was good. That's good. I'm glad that now I've been hearing this for years, but seeing people appreciate it is
yeah,
nice.
It's nice.
Because I mean, it's real annoying to be the only one. I'm just kidding.
I nerd out on this stuff.
I lied to you. I said I wasn't going to bring up the Whatnot show again, but here we are right before we finish up. April 24th, 7 p.m. live on Whatnot, the Ball Card Show. Look us up, follow, bookmark, join us there. This has been the Ball Card Show, the sports podcast
for the Sports Collector. Peace.